Guys, what's going on? Welcome to Serial at Midnight. My name is Heath, and it is time once again for a Review-Palooza. That's right, we have 20. It's a little bit. Marty, it's time for another Review-Palooza. It's not you, it's your kids. I have 20 titles here, and that's the most of any Review-Palooza to date. I'm going to try to make this not be too long, but you know how I have opinions and I want to share them with you guys. If you're just joining us for Review-Palooza, this is not a haul video. This is not a look what I bought video. This is a review video. I've watched all 20 of the titles I'm going to be talking with you guys about in this video. Because what's the point of buying it if you're not talking about what it means to you and to me? So, again, hopefully this isn't 3 hours. You actually have, weirdly enough, you know how long this is before I do. This guy is in the dark, but let's just get started. I've got these grouped by distributor, kind of like there's a method to the madness. I've kind of got an order here, but I like to start with things that are kind of newer, more topical, not necessarily new releases, but like maybe not a deep catalog title. So let's kick it off with Titans, the complete first season. DC Universe streaming service original series. This is the Blu-ray. I picked this up recently on sale through Amazon. This and Doom Patrol, which I have not yet watched Doom Patrol, but this was $9.99. So I'm not looking for more streaming services. I'm always looking to cut streaming services. We have lots of them. We currently have the WWE Network. We got Hulu. We got Netflix, but I'm always looking for the fat that I can trim. So I have not signed up for the DC Universe streaming service. However, I was not on board with this series anyway. Now come with me. I'm going to take you on a journey here because while I'm a comic book guy, right? You see the videos we put up, the stuff I do with Comic Book Savant. I have comics in the blood. I've been a comic book fan and reader for as long as I can remember. And this felt very much like a departure from the classic, much beloved Teen Titans run as created, Marv Wolfman, George Perez, beloved comics. And the trailer, when this first was announced, there was this teaser trailer, and it's like, Titans coming soon to the DC Universe streaming service. And then it culminates with Dick Grayson Robin, saying, F Batman. And I was like, what? What in the world? Like, why are they going so, quote, dark? And I put dark in quotes because if you know me, I'm not offended by darkness. I'm not, like... My thing is, most of the time when shows or movies think that they're going really, really dark, I find them to be funny. And so, because there's a very thin line between like super darkness and comedy for me, and I think for a lot of people. So I found the whole take to be super campy, and it just felt very like, look what we can do, because we don't have a network to answer to. We can say the F word. Aren't we bad? Like we're like a 12-year-old with a pack of cigarettes in his back pocket that he kind of wants his mom to see. Like, it just felt kind of, like not, that's not mature to me. That's actually the definition of immature. But here's the thing. I heard so many good people, so many people, most of them were good, talking about how this show had an upward trajectory. And I was like, you know what, $10? And if nothing else, I can flip this and I can make my $10 back, right? Or I could give it away in a contest or something. So, started it off, first episode, I'm like, well, it's exactly the show that I thought it was going to be. It's very obsessed with being like, this ain't your daddy's Titans. In fact, in the making of documentaries, there's like a bunch of special features here. 13 amazing featurettes. Guess what? Most of these are 2 minutes or less. Is the definition of just puff. They're just like pieces of cotton candy. There's no substance whatsoever. But someone in the making of one, like the overview for the series, so that's one of the Warner Brothers executives, literally says, "This ain't your daddy's Titans." I think that should be banned. I think anytime someone says, "This ain't your daddy's blankety blank," they're immediately, my mind immediately has tuned them out. But luckily, Jeff Johns and a host of wonderful writers and showrunners are responsible for this show. And immediately with episode 2, it started to get better. By the time they get to Hawk and Dove, which I think is episode 3, let me just verify that really quick. I guess it doesn't really matter. But episode 2 is Hawk and Dove, and episode 3 is episode 4. That's the one. Episode 4 introduces the Doom Patrol. I believe that one was written by Jeff Johns himself. If you don't know, if you're not coming from comics, Jeff Johns has one of the definitive runs on Teen Titans, the comic book, a definitive run on The Flash, definitive runs on Green Lantern. Like, he is like Mr. DC. Aquaman. He loves DC. He loves these characters. He loves this continuity. And it immediately started to get better. And by the time I got to the end of the series, I was like, man, this is fantastic. Truly compelling, truly mature, thoughtful storytelling that deals with not like I'm so bad and I'm so angry and I don't know what to do with it and it's eating me up inside. That's not mature storytelling. That's teenage storytelling. And that's fine. That serves a purpose. There's a place for that. But the stuff they get into, especially through Hawk and Dove and through some of the Doom Patrol stuff, but by the end of the series, it just felt very relatable. The characters are all trying to find who they are, overcoming their inner darkness, because that's the thing that I enjoyed about it, is because it does have that darkness, but they're overcoming. It's an effort to overcome that darkness. And from everything I've heard about this show, as it has continued into season 2, as it continues, these characters continue to find themselves. So, guys, I loved it. I mean, I loved it. From the whole rant that I just gave you, being totally perfectly honest with you guys, where it started, which was like a 1 out of 10 to me, and where it ended, I was like, I love this show. I will watch this over and over and over again. All in. I really do. Totally. I love it. I love this show. So I'm really glad I got this. I need to grab season 2, but season 2 just came out on Blu-ray, like as I'm recording this video. It's just been a few weeks. I think it'll get cheap soon, so you'll probably see season 2 in a future Review-Palooza sooner rather than later. So, all right, I wanted to lead with something that was kind of both. It's not a hot take, right? But that's the hottest take I have on anything here, I believe. So, let's move on to Bloodfest. This came in the horror pack, the March 2020 horror pack that horror pack sent us to open for you guys. Thank you again, horror pack. We love you guys. This was included in that, and I didn't know what this was, but I watched it. I spent time with the special features. I've familiarized myself with like what exactly it is. It's an Owen Egerton movie, and it is so much fun. I had a blast with this movie because, as I was telling you guys about, like, when things get really dark, it's a thin line between really, really dark. You know the movie I'm thinking about that everybody loves, that I think is just a hilarious mishap. I don't want to say it because people get really upset. People can't. They're like, you thought that was funny? But there's a movie. It's a very popular movie, and everybody loved it. It won some awards recently, and I think it's just unintentionally hilarious. This movie understands that with great darkness comes great comedy. It's just a hair's width away. And I loved it for that, because it gets the joke. And the more versed you are in horror movies and in horror tropes, the cliches, they call them out in this movie, the more you're going to get out of this. Like, there's a town, let me back up. Back up to the premise. The idea is that, okay, this kid, our main character is a child at the beginning of the movie. He sees his mom murdered by like a slasher killer, breaks into their house, and he grows up and he's in the shadow of this. He loves horror movies. It's helping him cope. And his dad's like super totalitarian. He's like, horror movies are the devil. And so there's this festival. It's a Bloodfest, which is this festival that you go, and like all the horror icons are there, and you can get autographs, and there's like a celebration of it's divided, like the area, it's like a Renaissance fair or something, but the area is divided into like Clown Town, and there's like a zombie area, there's a clown area, there's a I probably shouldn't just tell you every area in the movie, but what I loved about it is like there's all these little references. Like there's an area that's called Hodder. I think it's Hoddertown or Hodderville. I can't remember the exact. Hodder is in the root, and of course, Kane Hodder was many of our fans' favorite. It's a weird way. Jason. He was Jason, and a lot of people love him as Jason. And so, but they call out like Like, don't open that door. And they're like, why? Well, there'll be a misdirect. We'll open the door and we'll think that there's something there and there won't be. And then it'll be behind us. James Wan does that all the time in his movies. Like, it's clearly well versed in how horror works, and it's having fun with the tropes while playing within them. And I had an absolute blast with this. And it's a low budget movie. But, there's different degrees of low budget. Like we've talked about the Camp Blood movies, which are ultra low budget. Those are like VHS and then home, what I gather to be like consumer level cameras and stuff like that. And then there's, step up from that, like TV production, $500,000. Can I tell you this? I was kind of proud of myself. I was watching this movie and I was like, this has like decent production values. It's shot so well. There's light all over, like the use of light. Like there'll be a graveyard, and of course there'll be like a hill in the background, and then the blue light coming out from behind the hill. Lots of fog. Beautifully shot. Whoever, who's the cinematographer? Cinematography by David Blue Garcia. David Blue Garcia, good job, man. Beautiful cinematography. And I was like, this has got some money in it, but it doesn't look like it's got a ton of money in it because there's a little CGI. And I was like, I bet this is between $1 million to $1.5 million. So I went to IMDb just to kind of test myself. $1.2 million. I was like, well, look at that. Look what I was able to just like kind of guess by the production values that I see on screen. There's not a whole lot of real known talent in the movie. They've got Tate Donovan, who was Love Potion #9, Hercules, Friends, like the whole Jennifer Aniston love arc with on Friends. But it's a lot of fun. It's a whole lot of fun. It's super violent, but at all points, it's just like, come have fun with us. And I love it because, so I have a hard time with horror that takes itself seriously for the reasons that I've just told you guys, because it's so close to comedy most of the time. And if you're not on board, if you watch a ghost movie and you don't believe in ghosts, and the movie is so committed to ghosts and jump scares, like it's got an uphill battle to win you, right? But if it's having fun with it, it Poltergeist, right? Whether you believe in ghosts or not, Poltergeist is a fun movie because it's inviting you in on the trip and it's having fun with you. So I highly recommend this. This was so much fun. Did not listen to the entire commentary track, but listened to a little bit of it. And I recommend the commentary track too. It's a lot of fun. They're like spoiling Avengers Infinity War and stuff. It's very of its time, like mid to late 2018. So I don't know. I had a great time with it. I picked up What We Do in the Shadows. Now this has been out for a long time, but then it went out of print. And I never had the previous version. It was kind of one of those things that I think I saw it maybe digitally somehow. I think I rented it. I think that's what happened. It's like back in the day, I just rented this movie. And then it went out of print. And I never got the previous Blu-ray. So it comes back in print. This is directed by Jermaine Clement and Taika Waititi. Now, Jermaine Clement from Flight of the Conchords. And Taika Waititi as the director of Jojo Rabbit, Thor Ragnarok. He's hilarious. For me, I find him to be hilarious. I love the New Zealand kind of humor. I love. It's just so dry. It does not like swing the jokes at your head like a dead fish. Like it's very dry. It's like British humor, but just a little left of center further than that. Like it's just a little less polite. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how to categorize it. Oh, this also has the guy from why can't I Rhys Darby. Jeez. See, I'm telling you, once I get in like my head, it's hard to pull names sometimes because I have to switch tracks. Rhys Darby from Welcome to Jumanji. That guy, he's from Flight of the Conchords as well. He's in here as well. There's werewolves. So the premise of this is like a reality documentary about vampires, and like you have all the different kinds of vampires represented. You have the can I show you yeah, here we go. If you can see this, you've got like the super old, like the Nosferatu vampire, and then you've got like the sexy rebellious vampire, and then you've got like the gothic Vlad the Impaler vampire, and then you've got Taika Waititi, who's just like the goofy, foppish. He's like a dandy, but it's so funny, and there's werewolves and stuff, and so Rhys Darby is like, he's the head of this werewolf group. He's like, guys, what's your language? We're werewolves, not swearwolves. And it's fun. It's just very fun. But here's the thing. I grabbed this. This comes back out again. I hear that it's been out, like, hey, it's available again. So I grab it for like $12. It's got all these special features listed. But guess what? It is a BDR. It's burned on demand. It is not a pressed disc. And there are no special features. Now, I can't really complain because the price was obviously right. I waited. I didn't get the last one. I could go get the last one. It's like 25 to 30 bucks on the secondhand market right now. I'm not probably going to do that. I'm probably going to stick with this one, but because it's the movie that I care about. Most of the time, that's the thing about so many special features. Oftentimes, they're either not telling me something I couldn't have gathered for myself just by watching it, or they're just poof, that cotton candy kind of special feature I'm talking about that has no real value. But I know there's like a value add. Like, you're like, I bought this. I want some added value to this. So I don't. Will I track this down in a better, the original one? Probably not. I wanted to see over 2 hours of fantastic features, a commentary with Jermaine Clement and Taika Waititi, behind the shadows, video extras, interviews, promo videos, poster gallery. I don't care so much about the poster gallery, but some of the some of that other stuff might have been cool. So I don't know. We're about to switch gears to Warner Archive, but first, I'm not going to do a whole lot of editing because I've told you guys, the longer the video, the more the editing. If I do an hour video, chances are I've got 5, 6, 7, 8 hours in editing, so I try to limit how much I have to put into this. So I'm about to take a drink of water, and I'm not going to edit it out. So sing, just ventriloquist with me. What would I sing while I drink water? I leave it to you. 3, 2, 1, let's sing. Thank you. That was wonderful. All right. We are moving into Warner Archive. This is a mix of stuff that I got during the most recent sale. And also just stuff that I've picked up, things that were sent for review that I've requested for review. So let's kick it off with Paul Newman as Harper. Is that too hot? Can you guys see that? I don't want any flares. What is it? I can't. Hotspots. I don't want any hotspots here. But Paul Newman, Harper. You guys, so many of you told me when I covered this in the sale haul video, you're like, oh man, oh Heath, because you guys know me. You're like, oh Heath, you're gonna love that. And you got to get the Drowning Pool after you watch that one, and I do. I got to get the Drowning Pool as soon as possible. But 1966, Paul Newman as the private detective Harper. Now, this is based on a detective fiction series from Ross McDonald. I think it's Ross McDonald. And it's like 49, I think, is when the first one was published, all the way up through into the 60s. But the character is Archer. And I weirdly, like, they got the rights to the story, but they didn't get the rights to the name. So Paul Newman was like, well, call it Harper, because the movies that I've had the most success with have names. My character's name starts with an H. So here he is as Harper, and it is a 60s. It's got all the stuff that I love about the 60s, but it's also got noir elements because the story is rooted in the 40s. It's rooted in that noir tradition. So this is like a neo-noir. Now we have neo-noir with like LA Confidential, Motherless Brooklyn, things like that. This is a 60s neo-noir, and it is absolutely wonderful. It's written adapted, I should say, because it's written by the author of the book. But the screenplay is adapted by William Goldman, who would later go on, very soon after this, would go on to write Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and we also know him from The Princess Bride. He's the guy who wrote the novel and the screenplay for The Princess Bride. So there's a commentary track with him on here as well, and he's pretty great. He's kind of, I gather the commentary track was for the DVD, which I'm thinking maybe 2002, 2003, somewhere in there, because he's referencing Cameron Diaz and Julia Roberts and the stars of the time. And I think that was kind of at their pinnacle before. Anyway, so He just seems kind of not bitter, but he's like, you couldn't make this movie now, and then he lists all the reasons that you couldn't make this movie now, and by Jove, he's right. And that was 15 plus years ago. It's only gotten worse. He was saying, you couldn't put a star in jeopardy. You couldn't have a movie that doesn't have, so there's nothing wrong with him. He has no secrets. He's just a lonely private detective. He has no skeletons in the closet. He has no darkness. He's just a lonely man. You couldn't do that now because every hero or anti-hero has to have some edge to him in his past that makes him, it takes him down a notch. And he just goes through this list of like, well, we couldn't do it because of this now. There's this holding it back. And he's right. Like, we are so... If you're only familiar with modern movies and blockbuster movies and studio movies that are made by about 45 different people at boardrooms who's like, well, we need an action scene at 4 minutes. We've gotten so far away from this kind of movie, this kind of storytelling, which is just rooted in the human condition. And it's true. Like, you can't have patience with a character anymore. You really can in certain independent movies, but your bigger studio movies, this was a Warner Brothers picture, so you just can't really get away with that now because the audiences will only show up for a massive spectacle or for something with a ton of star power or some really compelling characters. You can't just be like, hey, wouldn't it be interesting if this guy just kind of tried to figure out what's going on. Like, you can't really do that anymore. So I don't know. I love this movie. I adored this movie. It's just so... Did I tell you who was in it? So it's got Lauren Bacall. One of the greats. Janet Leigh, Psycho. Paul Newman, of course. Paul Newman is just tops in this movie. I really like Paul Newman. He gives a very naturalistic, self-deprecating performance. Like, it's just like it's a natural, this is coming out of that movement, guys like Brando, and it was a different style of acting. And so, like, Newman, like, he comes into this big mansion and there's a girl at the pool in a bikini, and there's a guy listening to music on the lounge chair by the pool, and it's just like, and it's not a comedy performance. And then she's like, sir, follow me this way, and he's like, It's just this natural realism, this approachable, he's just likable, right? I don't know. I find this to be just delightful. So now I got to get The Drowning Pool, which I understand was not as financially successful. William Goldman doesn't think it works much at all, gathered on what he seems to be saying in the commentary. But I know so many of you guys think that it was maybe even better than Harper was. So, moving on to another thing that I purchased in the sale. This is Wait Until Dark with Audrey Hepburn, Alan Arkin. This is Alan Arkin. I won an Oscar for Little Miss Sunshine. It's very close to Bernie Sanders. Have we ever seen Alan Arkin and Bernie Sanders in the same place? I don't know that we have. Richard Crenna is also in this. A while back we talked about the Richard Crenna movie Midas Run, and I felt like he was really miscast in that movie because he was supposed to be like this fun, footloose, anti-war protester guy, and I'm like, that's not Richard Crenna. This is Richard Crenna. He's playing to his strengths here. That does not mean that I don't think he was a nice guy in real life. I think he was, but he's bringing that edge. That's like... there's a darkness there. There's like a sternness to who he is. Audrey Hepburn, she's blind. She's newly blind. She's in a car accident. And she's newly blind. This is 1967? 67. 66? 67. Is the next one 68? No, it is not. She's newly blind via a car accident, and there is something in her apartment that these bad guys, Alan Arkin... I'm sorry. There's something in the apartment that these guys need. It's a MacGuffin, and so they're trying to get into this apartment. She's blind, and it's like this weird cat and mouse game. And so this is my first watch of this, okay? And you hear so many people say, "Oh, that's a classic. That's one of the all-time greats." That movie is like, watch it with the lights off. It's so scary, and you're like, okay. Oftentimes I don't always necessarily agree with everybody, and we all have to come to things with our own lens, our own viewpoint. But I got to tell you guys, I start this movie, I'm like, it's pretty good. This is indeed a pretty good movie. Continues, I'm like, this is actually a really good movie. By the last 15 minutes, I'm just like, I'm in the presence of greatness. You know, you don't, that's the thing. If you guys are younger, or I guess age doesn't necessarily have anything to do with it. If you're getting into movies that are maybe outside of your comfort zone, you can't judge a movie by the first 15 minutes. The movie can't be really judged until it's all said and done, the credits have run, and you've seen the entire story play out. Other than that, it's just first impressions. So I say that to say, by the time the credits are rolling on this thing, I'm just like, this was incredible. This was an incredible movie. This is a cinematic achievement. Like, I don't want to oversell it to you guys, but it is really, really good. And you see how much has been borrowed from this movie. What's the movie? I can't remember the title. I own the movie. I've seen the movie. It's the movie where the kids, the rebellious kids, break into the blind guy's house and they're kind of messing with him, and then he fights back. I can't remember the name of it, but a billion of you, well, not a billion, a million of you will let me know in the comments below. But that's what I'm talking about. Clearly taking a lot of notes from Wait Until Dark. A lot of notes. Because now Audrey Hepburn is not like getting the gun out or anything like that, but there's just a lot of the suspense of like, this person is blind. How do you hide from a blind person when they know the environment so well? Anyway, just a fantastic movie. Let's move into some old movies. I mean old movies, okay? But I have good things to say about these. I think I can, if you check out for black and white stuff, hang with me for a minute, because I want to tell you guys some stuff about this. So this is Dodsworth, okay? This is a 1936 movie directed by William Wyler, who, if memory serves, doing the Columbo thing, if memory serves, just one more thing. If memory serves, William Wyler is one of the directors featured in the book and in the movie, the documentary series, Five Came Back, about the 5 directors that went to fight for the country, fight for freedom during World War II, and were forever changed by their experiences. I believe William Wyler is one of those guys. And so this is, William Wyler is one of our great directors, but this is a movie that has only recently been restored. I think a lot of people just have never seen this before, because I think up until this point, it was not in a presentable condition, or I'm not actually sure. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm telling you guys, some of the stuff I watched like a while back. But this has been newly restored by, is it the UCLA? Let's see, restored in 2019 by the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Science Film Archive. The blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Funding provided by the George Lucas Family Foundation. He's also, George Lucas was behind, well, the George Lucas Foundation was behind the restoration of Detour, the incredible film noir that Criterion Collection put out. When people rag on George Lucas, I can take it up to a point, but I really do love George Lucas. And he's an eccentric guy. He's acerbic. He's honestly, in his own flannel way, George Lucas is about as punk rock as you can get, because George Lucas does not care what you think. He really doesn't. He cares what he thinks, and he loves movies, and he loves comic books, and he loves, like, he has so many props he has Charlie Chaplin's hat. He has all of these props from classic Hollywood because he loves classic Hollywood. So this was funded. So I say that to say, when people rag on George Lucas, I'm like, we have so much to be thankful for. And he loves movies so much, he's helping us to save movies. So we have to compartmentalize some of that stuff, right? Like, maybe not love the work, but appreciate the man, right? So all that to say, Dodsworth, my first viewing, 1936. It stars Walter Houston and Mary Astor, Ruth. You guys probably aren't going to know who some of these stars are, but here's the premise of Dodsworth. It's an amazing movie. It's amazing. This motor cars magnate, 1936. So we're kind of early motor cars, you know? So it's 1936. He has sold his company, and he's going to go kind of like have a honeymoon with his wife. She's younger than him. And they're like, let's just get away. You've sold the company. Let's take the money. Let's just go live. Let's just go enjoy each other. Have that honeymoon. Rediscover our love for each other. So they go and they do this. And what we learn about her, I'm not going to spoil the whole movie for you, but what we learn about her is that because she's younger than him, she has a wandering eye. I don't mean that she's like cross-eyed. I mean, she flirts a lot. Okay. So there's always this threat of infidelity. And that's this whole thing. And then Dodsworth, Mr. Dodsworth, that's this character's name, Mr. and Mrs. Dodsworth. So Mr. Dodsworth he knows what's going on, but he loves her. He just adores her. And so he kind of he strikes up this friendship with this other woman, and it's a very realistic life kind of a story. And I know, guys, this is not a gangster movie. There's no guns, there's no chases, there's no battles. They call it, I think on the back of this, I keep seeing this referred to as an adult drama. And that's not always my wheelhouse. One, because I don't love like melodrama and stuff like that. And two, that can be very dry. But the way it's presented here by the master director, William Wyler, is so compelling and so relatable. You're watching this marriage, and it's not falling apart. That's the thing. It's like, it's not like this, like, oh, it's full of anguish. You just see, and you're like, well, this isn't good. This is bad. This is not going to work out. But the thing is, like, the movies like this, it does, how much do I tell you? It's not an uncomfortable movie to watch. I'll say that. There's a lot of joy. There's laughs in it. Here's the thing that I love about old movies, is that they are able to take, there's a charm, right? And if you're not watching a lot of older movies, it can be hard to enter into that world. But once you do, you will find a lot of, you'll find so much there. I'm trying to, like, I'm slowing down. You hear me? I'm slowing down. I'm trying to think about how to say this to you guys, how to convey, because I love old movies. I love the golden age of Hollywood, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, all that stuff in there. But you get into the early 30s, it's just magic. I'm talking about like early Bogart, some of the stuff we're going to talk about in just a second. There's just an absolute magic there that we have undeniably lost. You can say, like, well, Avengers has movie magic, and it does, but this is this whole other thing. I have reverence for these movies, because these movies are these are the movies that created Hollywood. These are the movies that these stars, these directors, these are the people that shaped the movie, like the industry for the next 100 years. And I know, like, I recommend older movies to you guys all the time, and I understand. You can't just go watch an older movie. You don't just pop on, you know, Little Caesar and just like, yeah, I'm watching Little Caesar now. You do have to kind of put yourself in a mindset. Like, I held this for a while before I watched it, because I needed to be in the mind space to watch it. But when you do, if you can enter into this realm, the reality that the movie is presenting to you, there are so many rewards there, and there's just this, I don't know. It's like a class. It's like a presence. It's like an electricity that the actors have. Because here's the thing, they don't feel like today. You know, a lot of people say, well, like, our actors today have nothing. They can't hold a candle to the actors of the past. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's not. But what I will say is that there's a sense of naturalism for all the staccato, like the, hey, see, you know what I was going to do? I was going to marry you. But you didn't want to be married, did you? No, see, you want to be out on your own, sailing the world. That sort of thing. Like, there is that, but there's also this realism to the performance where I don't know. There's an intangible quality to old movies. This one certainly has it. You guys, this is a 1936 movie. It takes place within the Hays Code era, but the Hays Code is the code, I call it the decency police. It was when, you know, the Universal monster movies, the earlier ones, Dracula, Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, they slip on there like right before the Hays Code crackdown. Get to around 34, 35, 36. The Hays Code is like, well, this movie has affairs, and this person has to be punished for what they've done. And they start mixing in, right? And they're like, you can't have this, you can't have this, you can't have this. If somebody dies, they have to die. Like, if someone kills someone, they have to die. And this really, it's a 1936 movie, but I'm telling you, it's got a little bit of nudity in it. It's got very mature themes. And again, when I say mature themes, like relationships falling apart, trying to find love or rediscover love with someone you knew. You're going to know people like this. If maybe you recognize yourself in here. It's kind of like, yeah, it's 1936, but we haven't changed. We really haven't changed. So, all right, that's all I'm going to say about Dodsworth. It's really fantastic. It's a beautiful film. When it was done, I was just like, I was on the verge of tears, legitimately, because it's beautiful. 42nd Street. There were two 30s musicals, 1933 musicals that I picked up from the Warner Archive sale. There was this one, and there was Footlight Parade. This is the one that kind of started the Warner Brothers musical cycle, the Busby Berkeley Busby Berkeley was the choreographer that kind of put together all these dances. And his stuff is characterized by like lots of legs. Okay, if you guys are familiar with the great movie ride from Disney, Disney's Hollywood Studios, formerly Disney's MGM Studios, which I credit, I don't know if I've said it in this video, I'll repeat myself, right? Because every video is someone's first video. I think a lot of my love for old movies comes from Disney's Hollywood Studios. And when I was, ooh, hold on. I'm sorry, I have a frog in my throat. Ventriloquize, be a ventriloquist for me. Let's sing a song. Okay. I think a lot of my love for the golden age of Hollywood comes from Disney theme parks, specifically MGM Hollywood Studios. They captured the Hollywood that never was, the brown derby that you can just go and grab a croissant from, and the great movie ride. There is a Footlight Parade scene. Was this Footlight Parade, right? In the great movie ride. So Busby Berkeley, lots of shots of legs and of patterns, geometric patterns, like people grouped together. Like you'd have like 50 dancers in a pool and their legs will all be doing this and then like turning, and like that's Busby Berkeley. Like, 'cause he was making a visual feast for your eyes. So this movie is I'm going to be honest with you guys, like it's a little dry at the beginning because it's about the birth of a play. And that's really what happens. It's like we've got the starlet who's the star of the play, and she's got a big ego, and she's like, "You know who I am?" And then you've got the understudies and the dancers, and as we're building towards, like, they're working on a play, and you'll see little glimpses of show tunes and numbers and stuff like that. And then by the end of the movie, you see the whole thing, the whole big dance number, 42nd Street, the musical number, and it is just like jaw-dropping. You're like, wow. 1933, so this flies definitely into that pre-code. Lots of legs, lots of short shorts, lots of, no bras on some people. It's just really interesting. I know so many people, I point things out like this time, like I point things out like this because I know sometimes the perception is that, well, old movies are sanitized. Old movies, they don't have real people in them. It's so artificial. It's not true. So, I mean, it's true for some. It is true for some. But there's so many that are just wonderful. So I have not yet watched Footlight Parade, only 42nd Street Forever. Not 42nd Street Forever, 42nd Street. So I will report back to you about the other one. And then this is going to wrap up our old-timey Warner movies. This is The Thin Man, which is just absolutely fantastic. William Powell, Myrna Loy, two basically just raging alcoholics. There's so many drinks consumed in this movie. Everyone is in a constant state. So everyone's lines are like, well, we got to find out who was there that night so we can investigate who might be the killer. Like, that's the whole movie. Like, everyone's drunk for the whole movie. But it's fun. It's just really fun. Watch this with Bree. I'm going to be honest with you guys. We had a little bit of trouble following the plot as this was our first time through on this one, because here's the thing. I will say this about some of these older movies, because of the fashions of the time and the dress and the black and white, sometimes it can be hard to tell certain characters apart from other characters because many of them look the same. Like 3 women with the exact same blonde hairstyle. They dress the same. They have the same facial structure. It can be a little bit difficult. All the guys have their hair slicked back or the suit and stuff. We were like, wait a minute, I thought that person was dead or something. And they're like, oh, no. So looking forward to watching it again. But the movie, like, it's just so much fun. It is, it's cheeky, it's tongue-in-cheeky, and it's got some sweet special features here too. It's got a full-length Lux radio presentation of the Thin Man's story, or A Thin Man's story, which was like an hour long. Back before television, you turned into the radio for your stories. It's got a full version of that. Drink more Ovaltine. It's got a 1957 episode of the Thin Man television series and the theatrical trailer. So it's very fun. All right, let's move. What a left turn. Let's take an extreme left turn into Police Academy. Okay, I will talk more about this in the future, but I picked up the entire Police Academy series from, it's an import from the UK. Some of the worst packaging in the history of box sets. This also comes from Warner, ironically. Warner Archive always preserves, like, a lot of times they'll preserve original poster art. You know, like this is the 42nd Street poster. This is the Dodsworth poster. And then Warner Brothers Home Entertainment, you know, Warner Brothers proper, is just like, let's just make it yellow with a police car. Like, this had beautiful, the Police Academy series had beautiful painted posters. And this is what we get. But on the back, if you guys can see, they have preserved, I think that's the original. Yeah, a version of the original art. These are the first, this disc, this package is the first 2 movies, 7 movies. I'm going to talk more about this first in Collecting at Midnight. Just to say, if you guys are wondering about Collecting at Midnight, it's been on Patreon since we launched Patreon. It all moved to Patreon. I do at least a 1-hour collecting segment every single month on Patreon. And I'll be talking about this very soon. I'm going to be talking about the box set itself, where I got it, how much I paid for it. And I think down the line, when I've watched all 7 movies, I'm going to maybe do a Police Academy focused video, because I've never seen them all. In fact, I'm not even sure which ones I have seen. I thought that I thought there was one that I had seen. It's this weird thing that's kind of always escaped me. I think when I was a kid, I wasn't allowed to watch them because obviously they do get goofier, but the earlier ones are very, they're for an adult audience, right? The first one was rated R. And as a kid, I didn't see a lot of them. I'd see some on TV. And then as I got older, I just never went back to, I was never like, you know what, I want to go check out the Police Academy series. Got to have more Bobcat Goldthwait. It just never happened. And it's not a judgment or anything like that. I just didn't do it. So now, here is the time. I'm putting in the work. I'm going to watch all of the Police Academy series. I've watched the first one so far. This is why I'm talking to you about it. And it's interesting, right? Like, it's not super funny, but it's enjoyable for what it is. And I feel like I didn't think that I'd seen the first one, but I recognize so many of the scenes. Maybe they were just on television so much that I just absorbed bits and pieces. You're flipping through the channels, like, oh, this is where he makes the sound effects of the machine gun, because I think that's like in all of them, right? But I don't know. I don't think anybody is like, well, the Police Academy movies are just great. They're not great movies. They're very formulaic. Like, this is basically Stripes, right? But instead of the Army, it's the Police Academy. And of course, Stripes didn't invent that either. The like, hey, let's join the Army, that goes back to like the 40s, like the Army comedies and stuff. It's just, we just keep updating things. Nothing's new. I say that all the time. Nothing's new. It's all just variations on themes that already exist. It was new at some point, but like even the movies from the 30s, some of that goes back to radio. Some of that predates radio, goes back to novels and plays and things like that. Some of it goes back to Shakespeare. To be perfectly honest with you guys, very little is new, but it's how we do it, and it's the cast and the stuff like that. And I don't know, it's fun, but I don't think I'm going to be able to watch too many of these in too short of a time. I think I might have to space it out, just because I just think that would burn me out or wear me out, one or the other, really quickly. But I did watch the first one, and I enjoyed it for what it was. From Mill Creek Entertainment comes The Warrant. We actually did an Instagram contest. This came with a digital copy. Hopefully you're following us on our Facebook. You're following us on all our Twitter, our Instagram. We gave a copy of this away, digital. This came with a digital copy, and we gave it away via a contest to one of the members of the Serial at Midnight community. But I haven't had a chance to talk to you guys about this yet. So now is the time. This is it's a direct-to-DVD Western. 2019, I think, is when this was copyrighted. And let me... All right, I gotta slow it down here. There are... So, I like the movie. I'm... Okay. Let me reboot. Okay. The Warrant it's a modern Western, and that is cause for celebration, right? I'm always happy to see another Western. We don't get enough Westerns. Westerns, they're largely considered to be a dead genre, a non-financially viable model. So a new Western comes along, I'm excited about it. It's got a good cast too. It's got Neil McDonough, the guy on the front here. I got some screenshots. I'll show you guys too. Here's a better shot of him on the back. Can you guys... Yeah, that guy. He's in so many things. Casper Van Dien is kind of the bad guy in this, and he's really good. Casper Van Dien, Starship Troopers, you know, he's made some movies that I think we would all agree are maybe not the best movies, but he's really good in this movie, and I think he's really good in a lot of the stuff that he does. I think maybe he's one of these guys that, I don't know, like a Brendan Fraser or somebody like that, where just history and some of the choices and some of the market trends have ultimately punished the actor, and it's maybe not been fair what has happened, but this is the premise of this movie is that it's a Civil War era story. Neil McDonough and Casper Van Dien fought in the Civil War, and Neil McDonough saved Casper Van Dien's life, and he's like, "You're kind of crazy," because he's kind of crazy. And he's like, that's oversimplifying it. I don't want to spoil any plot elements for you guys because I do think this is worth a watch. But something happens. Casper Van Dien kind of goes off the deep end, arguably, understandably. But Neil McDonough saves Casper Van Dien's life, and he's like, you know what? I'm supposed to kill you. I'm supposed to hang you for what you've done. I'm turning the other way. Get out of here. Go start your life over again. Get far away and just start over. So it's a few years after the Civil War, and because the movie takes place in two timelines. It's like flashbacks to Civil War, a few years later. Flashback, later, all through the movie. And then we learn that Casper Van Dien has put together this gang of people, and that idea, it's very cool. There's like, well, we got the sniper guy who's really good. They can pick people off from like so far away, and you get to see that. And then it's like, oh, and then there's the guy that uses this huge gorilla of a man who uses brass knuckles. That's cool. Like there's all these specialists that he's put together in this gang. But the movie itself it's just kind of flat, and it's okay. It's a very low budget movie. I'm glad it exists, but it doesn't have any flair or really individualistic style. So many of the shots, you know, for the premise that I'm telling you about in the hands of like one of the Italian spaghetti western directors, it would have been amazing. But so many of the shots, you know, it's just like people standing and talking. There's like 2 locations in the whole movie. And so many shots would just be like locked off shot. It's not even locked off. It's like steady cam. So it's like steady cam on one person, steady cam on the other person. 2 shot. You have 2 people in frame, steady cam. There's really not a lot of like moving tracking shots. There's no fluidity to how the story is told. Maybe that's intentional. I don't know. There's some drone photography of like the woods and stuff like that works, but it doesn't have, there's not a lot to pull you in. And this may be a me thing. I'm not sure, but it's shot digitally and it just looks it doesn't feel cinematic. It feels like a TV movie. Even further, it feels like maybe a Hallmark Channel movie. And for me, that's not necessarily a great thing. But then I look at like my dad, Papa Midnight, loves watching Westerns and like redemption stories on the Hallmark Channel. That's what he's into now. He's just moved into this phase where he's like, I just love a good Hallmark movie. The Hallmark Christmas movies. You guys know those things are huge. So while that's not necessarily for me, it might be, you know, for other people. And let's be honest about what this movie is. This is a young director. I think this is his 3rd movie. And he's got some good talent. I think Neil McDonough helped finance the movie. He's got producers, credits and stuff. It's got Annabeth Gish in it. Stephen R. McQueen. Is that the guy from the Vampire Diaries? He's like the grandson of Steve McQueen. To be clear, he's not Steve McQueen, and it's not fair for us to compare him to Steve McQueen just because he's got the lineage. But here's the thing. This is what I'm trying to say. There are movies that are made on very low budgets that are intended to be picked up by streaming services. Their whole point of existence is like, well, we'll put $100,000 into this. We'll put $500,000 into this. We'll sell it to a streaming service. We make our money back on the fees that we get from that. And then we have enough money to maybe go make something else. And that's the whole goal. That's the modern, you know, that's how the market has changed. Because there's so many movies. We have all these streaming channels, Amazon Prime, Netflix, even the specialized channels, the Western, the stuff on Roku, you know, people are looking for content. And that's where stuff like this comes in. So I'm thankful that Mill Creek Entertainment picked up the distribution rights for this physically, because I'm glad to have it. Listen, I'm telling you guys, look, it's a Western, it's a modern Western, it's a cool story. Casper Van Dien is really good, But it's hard to watch something like this and not see it, you know, like, well, what could this have been with another $1 million and with some different cinematography? But we can't do that. You know, I can tell you how I feel about it, but at the end of the day, this is the movie that it is. It's not the movie that I wish that it was. It's okay. That's where I'm at with it. It's okay. I'm glad that it exists. I'm glad that this has been put on DVD. It could have been better. But I've said it, right? Like, I've conveyed the idea. I'm not being down on it. I never want to come down on anything because, like, it's hard to make a movie. It's hard to accomplish anything through art. Like, it's hard to make anything, but it's especially hard to make a movie. Some of these movies take people like a year to make. Like, by the time you financed it, you got to gather your financing, and then you got to get your cast together, and then you got to nail your script down, then you got to go out and actually shoot it. And you got to hope that the light's right. You got to hope it's not raining. It's just a lot. One other thing I want to say about this is it's got a lot of Civil War scenes. And to my point about it being so low budget, like, I don't think there's ever more than 5 soldiers in a single shot. And it kind of just looks like a historical reenactment for like the History Channel or something like that. And again, not a knock. I'm sure that they did absolutely the best they could with what they had, but it just doesn't really, it doesn't elevate, you know, and it's a shame. So, but, you know, it's experience for sure. And again, I'm glad you guys understand it. I'm glad to have it, right? I'm not poo-pooing the movie. I'm just being honest about what it is. And some things exist to be sold and to finance the next thing. So let's move into MVD. I want to talk to you guys about the Mindgames MVD Rewind Collection release. This is a movie, I'd never seen this movie before I picked it up through that MVD Rewind. The MVD Entertainment sale, which was a great sale. Hopefully you guys got in on it. We shared it on our social media. But this is a movie it's 89, let's see, 90. It was copyrighted 89, I think, and it aired it hit theaters in 90. It's about a guy, it's this family. This family's having problems. It's a young family. The dad is Edward Alpert, who is Eddie. I'm going too fast. I gotta slow down. I get so passionate about this stuff, but the faster I go, the harder it is for me to like hone in on certain things. Okay. It's Edward Albert, who is the son of Eddie Albert, the Green Acres actor. We talked about him, I think maybe 2 Review-Paloozas ago, with the Gun Runners, the movie with Audie Murphy, where they go to Cuba and run guns, not young guns, but run guns. And it's Eddie Albert's son, Edward Albert, and Sean Weatherly, who, I think this is correct. This is another one. It's been a while since I watched this. Sean Weatherly was like Miss Universe, and she had done like Baywatch and all. She's stunningly beautiful. Ironically, like in the special features for this, it's been 30 years and she's still very beautiful. She does not look like she's late 50s, early, like, however, I don't want to put age on her, but she looks good for her age. I'll say that. She was, she's really good in this. It's a young family that the wife is kind of looking like she thought there'd be more, you know, again, kind of like the Dodsworth thing. Like, is this what we are? Is this where, like, we got married and now I'm just like, well, you know, I'm kind of bored with you. They have a young son and they decide they're going to go hit the road, Pacific Coast Highway, I think they're heading north. And they're just going to experience life, stop and look at the beautiful scenery and stuff like that, do some camping in this RV. And they pick up a hitchhiker who is played by, oh, hold on, what's this cat's name? Maxwell Caulfield, the Australian actor who plays Rex Manning in the Empire Records. Happy Rex Manning Day, by the way. It was just a few days back as I'm recording this video. But happy Rex Manning Day. The actor that plays Rex Manning is the hitchhiker. And he's like a psychology major, and he's just messing with his family as a psychology experiment to see how far he can push them, if he can break them, if he can separate the husband and the wife, if he can manipulate the kid, because the son like kind of worships him, if he can, break this kid. And coming from horror, a lot of us love horror movies. Like, a lot of the stuff that he does isn't really that bad. You're just like, well, like he didn't murder a family. It does get progressively worse, but the idea is like it's a thriller. It's like a psychological thriller, not an out-and-out horror movie. So it's not super egregious in a lot of what it does, but it is an interesting movie. Then, of course, the special features are where you really get into the stuff. Like, that's what I love about these MVD rewind collections. I constantly talk to you guys about these, even if the movie is like, whether you love the movie or not. And a lot of times I think they know you don't love the movie. These are like video store era staples of movies that maybe you saw, you rented, and then you just moved on. They weren't things you rented every single weekend. They were just like video store catalog titles. And I think that's the intention behind this, but to tell you the story that you never knew. And so this movie, the making of documentary about this is longer than the movie itself. And it's got dirt, man. It's got a lot of dirt. They reveal that originally in the role of the dad was Jeff Conaway from Taxi and from Grease. He was Kenickie, right? Kenickie in Grease, like famously difficult actor. And he was cast as the dad. They shot days on set and it wasn't working because he was so mercurial, and he was like, I can't go on until I get my dragon tea. And they're like, what is dragon tea? And it was like this late 80s herbal craze that was sweeping the community. So they got to go like 3 towns over to get dragon tea and bring it back before he can shoot his scenes. So that didn't work, right? So that he gets recast, but there's just a lot of dirt in, behind the scenes. So that's stuff I love about this. And you can kind of see, well, we started with this intention. We had this budget. The director of the movie, Bob Yari, was so frustrated at how things were distributed. He feels like he got caught in the middle of like the company that he was distributing with got sold to another company, and he feels like he slipped through the cracks and they didn't care about his movie, and so he walked away for years. It's interesting stuff. These documentaries, whereas like mainstream stuff right now is just the cotton candy. There's nothing to it. On older release, and to be clear, the reason for that is because these companies want to control the narrative. But when you get into these older movies, the narrative doesn't matter. You're talking about people that may not even be alive anymore, as is the case with Jeff Conaway. He has left us, but they can really tell you what happened. And by watching these things, you learn so much about how this stuff really works, and how the politics behind the scenes, and the difficulty with the actors, and like you get the character, the actors will be like, well, I had a hard time playing this because I like this person. They were supposed to be evil and I thought they were cute and I kind of wanted to date them, and like that sort of thing. So I love stuff like this. It's just packed with information for film fans. It's educational. I also picked up the Violence movie during the last MVD sale. Violence movie 1 and 2. You guys, this is amazing. When we talked about this in the MVD sale haul video, this was done by 2 brothers. It was like, let's see if I can get the names. David Wilkinson and Eric D. Wilkinson. And they kind of just like, it's homemade horror. We champion homemade horror here. And they're kids, right? They're like coming on the verge of manhood. Like, I don't know how exactly old they were. I'm gathering 15, 16, 17. And they're making like a homemade slasher movie. They're about 14 minutes each. The Violence movie, they're like, it's a slasher movie. Like, guy comes in out of the woods, just starts slashing up the house and stuff. And then the second version, like, they got a little bit more money, they got a better camera, and then they go all out. They like take the battle for survival, like out of their bedroom, up the side of the house, onto the roof. There's like, we get down in the pool, we're out in the woods. It's crazy. And these guys did this themselves at home, right? So when we talked about it in that haul video, the director stopped by to say hello. And he was just like, I wanted to say, hey, thank you so much for picking up the movie. I'm glad you enjoyed it. So this is very cool. Still, after all these years, still connected to the art. This is one of those things that was traded on tapes just over and over and over again. So just knowing the lifespan of the channel and the stuff that we love to talk about, I suspect we're going to talk about the Violence movie over and over and over throughout the years, because it's like the template for homemade horror. It's so good. It's better than $5 million horror movies that I've seen. It's better than studio horror movies. I'm not going to name names because I know people go, well, I like that movie. And if you don't like it and I do, we got a problem. So I'm not going to name names, but what they accomplished is better than what a lot of actual directors have accomplished in a studio system or an independent system with a lot of big financing. It's just so much fun. And it's got really good extras too. It's got commentary. The guys do commentaries. There's outtakes. There's when they go back to refilm scenes 15 years later, or to finish scenes that they didn't get to get the first time around. Also from MVD during that sale, I purchased Golden Temple Amazons. In my unboxing haul video, I kept calling it Golden Temple of the Amazons. It's just Golden Temple Amazons. This one's going to be kind of tricky. I don't know how to... So, it's a Jess Franco movie. And Jess Franco is famous for, like, kinky movies, like nun, like sexy nun movies. But he has different areas, right? So, like in the 60s, he did is it The Million Eyes of Sumaru? I can't remember which one. There were 2 Sumaru movies. He did one of them. And it's all of his stuff. Like, he just clearly worships women. I think he's into domination, which is fine. That 50 Shades of Grey thing. But it's a recurring theme in every single thing he seems to do. It's just like the worship of woman, the dominance of woman. So this movie comes along, and it's like an early 80s Beastmaster style, Masters of the Universe, Conan the Barbarian, that sort of thing. Like hey, let's go out into the woods and make this exotic movie. And that is essentially what it is like there's a temple of Amazon women, think Wonder Woman, and there's there's a treasure, and there's these warrior women who do not wear any tops at all, and that's about it. That's really about it. If you're coming to these movies for plot, it's not there. But if you can tap into the vibe, I'm trying to be so careful here. If you can tap into the vibe of what these movies are trying to do, which is to show you what Jess Franco thinks are stunningly beautiful women in exotic locations. Like I think this one shot in, I want to say it was in Spain. And so there's waterfalls and these green, beautiful mountains and these, I was going to say rolling hills, but that does not fit in well with the topless aspect I was just talking about. That's what he wants. That's what he's into. It's total exploitation. But there's this weird innocence about it too, right? Like it's not, it doesn't really feel mean most of the time. A couple of times it gets a little mean, but it's not an angry movie. I guess that's where I'm coming from. There's a few different kinds of exploitation, and there's an angry version of this movie. This is not an angry movie. Let me show you the back. This is one of the rare scenes that they could use for the box art, because most of the movie has unclad people in it. So I even I wanted to shoot some scenes to show you guys too, and I had a really hard time. I'm like, well, I can't show that one. I can't show that one. But I mean, look, they're not good, right? Like no one's saying that they're good. I don't think the goal was ever to be good. I think the goal was, hey, let's go out into the Spanish countryside. It's beautiful out there. I've got all these women. They want to be on camera. They want their 5 minutes of fame. And we'll just kind of make it up as we go. Because again, there's not a lot of story. And it's just, I kind of compare it to like ambient music, right? Like, you know, like the show Echoes that comes on late night. It's like NPR and stuff. It's just like ambient music. You put it on to vibe to. It's not necessarily about telling a story or like verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. It's not really what it's about. It's kind of just about like, will you just exist in this thing? And I think that's what these movies are. This one and Diamonds of Kilimanjaro, which I have not watched yet, but I suspect is going to be exactly the same. You just vibe with them. And by MVD restoring these movies, they've never looked better. I was doing a little bit of research about this one, and it never even got released in America until 2005. It's an 80s movie. And I guess it was just so, woo. I mean, I don't know. I don't really know what the problem was, but it got like, of course, European distribution because, of course, you know, yeah, it did. But like America was just like, no. But in 2005, it looks like it finally came out in America. But it's been beautifully restored. It looks like you're watching pristine film. So I'm happy with my purchase. That's the bottom line. Is I'm happy with what I bought. Am I going to watch it once a week? No, I'm not. But I had kind of suspected what I was getting into. I was not wrong. The last item from the MVD entertainment sale is my favorite item from the MVD Rewind sale. And that's really saying something because there were some gems in that. It is Being Evil, the Evel Knievel biography movie, biopic, or if you want to, biopic. But the biographical picture about Evel Knievel, produced by Johnny Knoxville, among others. Boy, this was amazing. I'm going to, full disclosure, I did not intend to sit down and watch this entire thing. It was late at night. I'm going to say it was about 11 o'clock at night. And I was like, I probably got a half hour in me, maybe an hour. It was over before I even realized. And not because I fell asleep either. I was just like, put it on, and it just sucked me in. The tagline here, the good, the bad, the evil, that really sums it up. Because Evel Knievel, not a nice guy. Jay Leno. This is Evel Knievel. It's not really a nice guy. It's kind of a jerk to other people. Yeah, it's not so good. He was kind of horrible to a lot of people. Total infidelity, total egomaniac, like power trip to just about everybody in his life. I actually wish that this was longer, because I feel like maybe there's some stuff that we skipped like 20 years. Like we kind of cut from the mid to late 70s to like the 2000s and the rise of extreme sports. And I want to know what was happening in between that. But of course, those aren't the glory days. The glory days are the 60s and the 70s with all the huge jumps. I think he was just as famous for the crashes as he was for the successful jumps. But this is, it's so good. This is definitive. I've never read a book about Evel Knievel or anything like that. Maybe now I will. But it just so captures through archival footage, the film footage of the wrecks and the jumps and stuff like that. Everything's captured on film because, of course, he was doing this in the public eye. And it's just stunning. It's just compelling stuff. You look at... He seems like a kindred spirit to Jerry Lee Lewis, someone who accomplished great things, but is clearly not a nice person, can't seem to hold a relationship down, can't seem to, threatening people's lives with guns, very much like Jerry Lee Lewis. But of course, that's fascinating to watch. So this is wonderful. I think there is a Blu-ray for this, but I think it's burned on demand. I don't think it's a pressed disc. I think it's a burned Blu-ray. And I think it's like $25, whereas this was about $6, I believe, during the sale. So this was the way for me. I got to tell you guys, for a DVD, it looks really good, especially since we're dealing with a lot of 70s, like 8mm footage and 16mm footage. HD is not going to do a whole lot of a benefit for this, but I'm happy with this, and I wholeheartedly recommend this to you guys. I know this aired on television, maybe the History Channel, I'm not sure, but really, really compelling stuff. So that's the MVD stuff. Let's move on to, I'm going to, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so we got 6 left. I think I can blow through it pretty quick. Actually, let me hydrate. Ventriloquist time, guys. What are we seeing this time? Whew. It's so hot behind these lights. In case you're wondering, why is he so thirsty? It's very hot. I got multiple lights up. It gets hot. These came from the Kino Lorber sale, but Kino Lorber distributes for other companies such as Scorpion Releasing. So this comes from Scorpion. This is called Firepower. It's Sophia Loren, James Coburn, and O.J. Simpson. At peak of his powers, O.J. Simpson too, I believe. This is it's interesting. How do I get into this? So this started as now I did a little research. If I'm incorrect, be kind, but this is my understanding. This started as a movie for Clint Eastwood, and Clint Eastwood didn't want to do it, so they were like, "Well, we'll move it to a Charles Bronson movie," and then that didn't work out either. So rather than just scrap the whole thing, which is where it was headed, they end up giving it to Coburn. And it becomes something else. Because even at this point in the game, James Coburn is he's no Clint Eastwood or Charles Bronson. Coburn was, he looks like he's got to be in his 60s. I don't know that he was, but even Sophia Loren, she's in her mid-40s here, still very beautiful. Sophia Loren always had that exotic quality. I always feel like a young Sophia Loren and a Mila Kunis, very similar. They're the same eyes, same facial structure. But Sophia Loren still, even though she's in her 40s, is still very beautiful, still getting top billing. What is it? Operation Crossbow. I think she gets top billing in Operation Crossbow as well, even though she's in like 15 minutes of the movie. But it's just an interesting story as far as like how it came together, and it feels a little scattered. It's got a cool supporting cast. Let me see if I can. This is one of the ones that's been the longest since I watched. It's got Eli Wallach, who's Magnificent Seven, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Let's see. Billy Barty. It's got Billy Barty in it. Victor Mature in one scene. Victor Mature, Samson from Samson and Delilah, Cecil B. DeMille's biblical epic. And it's directed by Michael Winner. That's right. So it's from the director of like the Death Wish movies. And it kind of feels like that. But there's so much plot. There's enough plot for 3 movies in this movie. And it is ultimately too much plot. It's too much twisting. You need. I kind of felt the same way about Atomic Blonde when it came out, just for a more modern reference. I'm like, there's so much plot in this movie. You need to write it down just so you can follow. Okay, well, so and so double crossed so and so, but that was a double cross really for so and so. But I don't know. I think the appeal of this movie is just to watch these guys do what they do. It's got good action scenes. It's got. It's you understand what I'm saying? Like, it's just a 70s. It's the kind of movie that comes out during a time when a movie is not an action movie and it's not a drama. It's just kind of a 70s movie. So this is a 70s movie. It's got some romance elements. It's got some action, some chases, a lot of things blowing up, a lot of machine gun fire, and a lot of like sneaking around heisty kind of stuff too. It doesn't do any of those things super well, but it does it well enough to make this interesting. Like, this is not something that you go back to it every now and then. It's not something that you're like, oh, but it's one of those catalog titles that you just don't hear about. So you grab it because you never know if you're ever going to see it again. So I enjoyed it for what it was. I'll tell you what else I really enjoyed is Covergirl, also from Scorpion Releasing. And speaking of Jeff Conaway is the male lead of this movie. And it's 83? Yeah, 1983. It's the story of a model. Jeff Conaway is like this very rich millionaire business leader guy. But of course he's Jeff Conaway because he can't play like a straight button-down guy. He's got to be like, I'm the wild guy. I go out and party all night and I just pop champagne in the middle of fashion shows because that's what I do. He's the millionaire guy and he sees this model. And he's like, I'm going to make you my next star. You're going to be a millionaire by the end of the year. And it's just like he takes her under his wing. And it's just this whole thing. And coming from the time frame that it did, like, it just feels like an episode of Charlie's Angels to me. But it's like an R-rated episode of Charlie's Angels with a lot of nudity. And with just things that, like a lot of drugs and stuff like that. And one of the things that I actually really liked about it, it's got this 80s robot. And this 80s robot pops up in multiple scenes. I love it. 80s robots were the best, right? Happy birthday, Polly. I still kind of hope to have an 80s robot one day. But I don't know. The premise, like they say, they are the world's top models. During the day, they create fantasies. At night, they live them. Not really. That's not really what the movie is. The movie is kind of like, he told her he'd make her a model. Okay, hold on. He told her he would make her a model millionaire. But what he didn't tell her is what it would cost to achieve it. That's really kind of what I would say the tagline of the movie is. But I'm going to be honest, like, it's for the fashion and the music and like, it's just a lot of this, right? It's just visually stunning, but with the models and everything else, it's just like you're watching it for a particular reason. Jess Franco would probably watch this movie. He'd want more people to be tied up, but he would probably enjoy this movie. I really like it for what it was. I'm so happy to have it in the collection because I had never really heard of it, and now I can. I was gonna say now I can whip it out whenever I want to. That's a poor choice of words. Last thing from the Kino Lorber sale I want to talk to you guys about is Stick with Burt Reynolds. This is not the best Burt Reynolds, but it's an interesting movie. He directed this movie. And it's got everyone that talks about Stick. There's 2 points. It's an Elmore Leonard screenplay. Elmore Leonard is the author of Rum Punch, which would become Jackie Brown, which Quentin Tarantino adapted for screen. He's also the guy that wrote 3:10 to Yuma. He wrote, like, Miami Criminals is, now 3:10 to Yuma does not fit into this, but Elmore Leonard writes Miami Criminals. Like, everybody's in Florida, and he's just really good at, like, the glitz and the glamour of the 70s and the 80s. And out of this comes Stick, with a screenplay by Elmore Leonard and directed by Burt Reynolds. And the other thing that people talk about is the balcony stunt, which they have put right here on the back of the box. Because the balcony stunt, I took, here, I'll show you guys the balcony stunt. There's this guy, the stuntman we love. He's popped up in several things. We've talked about him before. He died shortly after this movie. It's really tragic. But he's hanging from this balcony. And Burt Reynolds is looking down. He's like, save me. Not Burt Reynolds. The guy's like, save me. And Burt Reynolds is just like, no. And the guy falls. Like, there's a pool. They're hanging off a hotel balcony window. You can see all the way down. And he just falls. And you see nothing. You see no wires. You see no... He's clearly not a dummy because he's in frame right there. And he's just like falling and shooting all the way down. And it was... It's still, I think, lauded as one of the most realistic... stunt falls that's ever been committed to film. And this guy had a system of how he would actually, it was like a slow down system, but the way that they did this, like, you don't see it. It just looks like a dude falling to his death. So that's the appeal. Burt Reynolds, though, he's kind of charming here, but the usual Burt Reynolds charm is not really present. And that's because this movie comes at one of the worst times for Burt Reynolds personally. I think it was the year before this. City Heat with Clint Eastwood. He had it was a fight scene, and he was supposed to get hit with like a gimmicked chair that was supposed to break, and he gets hit with a real chair. I think it was a steel chair in the face, and it smashed into his jaw, and it like messed him up, and he didn't recover from that for like 2 years. He couldn't really eat without being in a lot of pain, and so he lost a lot of weight. And even like in this movie, there was a rumor that he had AIDS because he was so skinny. Burt Reynolds had always, he was like Deliverance and all these, he was a stuntman, Navajo Joe, all these movies. He was always brawny. He had big muscles. He was built. He was a bodybuilder, and he worked out. He was very physical. In this movie, he looks sick. He looks really ill. But that's why, because he was coming off of this jaw injury. And this is the movie after, I believe, if I'm correct, this is the next movie after that accident with the jaw thing. And it put him out for like the better part of 2 years. And he just kind of, I think it cost him a lot of work. I think it cost him a lot of health. And he, according to him in his biography, which I have, is his autobiography, his memoirs, there are people that he held grudges against that wrote him off during that period. Like, he says he never forgave them. I hope he did, because that's not a way to live. But it had that accident had long-term ramifications, and that kind of is all present here in Stick. So it's not anybody's best work, but it is good for what it is. Charles Durning is in here with these like weird bushy stick-on eyebrows that aren't fooling anybody. But it's got good scenes. It's got good stuff in it. Like, there's this guy who won't leave the party. They're having this party, and he won't leave. And he's just beating everybody up. And they're like, you got to get out of here. And he's like, no. So Burt Reynolds comes up with a gas can. And the guy's like, what are you going to do with that? So Burt Reynolds goes over to this cocktail glass, and he pours the gasoline in the cocktail glass. And he comes back to the guy, and the guy's like, what do you want? And he just like throws the gas on him, and then lights his lighter. And he's like, it's time to go. And the guy's like, all right. So it's a great scene, great moment in a maybe not great movie, but you know, for the Burt Reynolds completionist, it is a must. All right, 3 left. We'll go through these quickly. Record City. This comes from Scorpion Releasing directly through Scorpion. Ronin Flicks. This is a movie. Look, it's not good. This is not a good movie, but it comes out of the. You know what? What year is this? 1977. This is Empire Records in 1977. It's about the ins and outs, a day in the life of a record store in the 70s. And it's got like a lot of Rick Dees is in it, giving one of the weirdest performances I've ever seen anybody give before. It's just like over the top. Frank Gorshin, who is the Riddler, plays like 3 different roles. He plays like this criminal that's constantly changing his appearance and doing different voices and stuff. It's not good, but as a curiosity, it's the kind of thing that I love because these are the kind of movies, and this is literally just vanish. This movie never had a DVD release. Up until now, it never had a Blu-ray release. So for the last at least 20 years, I'm not even sure this had a VHS release, to be honest with you guys. Maybe it did, but there was a soundtrack. Oh, here's Rick Dees. This is indicative of his entire performance in the movie. He is on Mars for the whole movie. But here's what's kind of disappointing that I wish I'd been prepared for. This movie was shot on video, shot on tape, right? So Blu-ray does benefit it a little bit, I guess. But it was shot on tape and then edited on film. So it looks like video, right? It looks like an episode of Three's Company or an episode of WKRP in Cincinnati. It doesn't look good. If you're prepared for that, that's fine. I was not prepared for that. I was thinking we were going to be getting like original source elements. Started doing some homework. Original source elements were videotape. So it's only going to look so good. So it's again, it's not a good movie, but it's something that a certain kind of movie fan loves. Like, this is a drive-in movie that I think if you didn't see at the drive-in, you maybe never heard of it before. I'm super interested in it because of the obscurity of it, right? And it's because it's so bad and because it's so rare, it has tremendous kitsch value. That's the only way I can explain it. Like, it's cool to have because it's like, because we're allowed to preserve it and we're allowed to experience whenever we want to. Like, we can tap into this thing that we never had access to before. I guess that's really what it is. It's like, I can't see it. I can't see it. Oh wait, I can see it. Okay, well, I got to see it. And then you, of course, you buy it so you have access to it forever. I think it was $20, which is, it is what it is. But $20, I now have a movie that I never could have seen or had before. Like, yeah. I'll pick it up. So this kind of falls under this movie. This is Blind Rage. Kind of falls under the same category. Not a great movie, but kind of fun if you know what it is. This is so it's got Fred Williamson in it. Fred the Hammer Williamson for about 10 minutes. The previous hour and 10 minutes or so before that, how long is this? 82 minutes. So for an hour and 12 minutes, it's the story of this heist that is going to be conducted by five blind guys. Yeah, 5 blind master killers, led by martial arts master Lin Wang, played by Leo Fong. That's it. 5 blind guys doing a heist. Now, at no point does I think the idea is like, what would be really great is if we want to bump off this bank. If we want to rob this bank, you know what they never see coming? Blind guys. It's an excuse for an exploitation movie. And it's kind of boring, but then Fred the Hammer Williamson shows up and he's just like super awesome with like cigar. He's Fred Williamson. And anytime you have him in a movie, you're just like, oh yeah. But it's goofy fun. It's not long enough to outlive its welcomeness. It's another one. Like, it's the kind of thing you'd expect to see pop up on like a 25 movie pack, but this actually comes from the original film elements, so it's been fully restored. It looks like you're watching a drive-in movie. Like, it's not clean. It's got like pops and scratches and stuff, but it's film. And it's widescreen. It's in its original aspect ratio. It's got a new interview with Fred the Hammer Williamson on it. It's got a new interview with Leo Fong, who was the martial arts guy. I mean, God bless Leo Fong. But I don't know. I had to grab this one too. And again, I'm not saying it's good, because it's not. But if you're a movie collector who loves the obscurities, sometimes that's what it's about. It's not necessarily about what's really good. It's about like, I want to get my hands on this because it's like this forbidden thing that no one really knows about. And I can see it and it's been restored and it's like I'm seeing it in 1970 whatever at a drive-in. That has a lot of value for a certain kind of a movie fan. Okay, This is the Giant Spider Invasion from Dark Force Entertainment. This is pure drive-in cheese. Listen, for a movie about giant spiders, it lives up to everything I had hoped for from this movie. terrible plot. I don't think there was a plot. There's new interviews. Actually, they're not interviews. They're I think they're from the DVD, like a previous DVD version. But the director basically is like, we're kind of just making it up as we were going. We knew we wanted to do spider stuff. We knew we had a giant spider. And there is like a legitimately giant spider. Like there's a shot of the spider on the side of this house. Spider chasing people down the street. And you know how they achieved it is they took a Volkswagen Beetle and they built this spider out of, like, they made a spider frame to go around the Beetle. And then they have like 5 guys inside who could not see, manipulating the legs and stuff. So you have like this Volkswagen Beetle spider chasing people down the street. It is magnificent. It is again, not good, but the spectacle, right? It's the spectacle of what we're talking about. And it looks, again, restored from film. I don't know if it's a film negative or if it's just a film, a film print that they got, but I'm so glad to have this because Alan Hale Jr. is in this, who was in he's the skipper from Gilligan's Island, and he knows what movie he's in. He looks at the camera, he's mugging, he's like, "What's that? Giant spiders? Oh no!" Like just looking straight at you, the viewer. He calls someone little buddy. he knows what he's in. But it's so campy, but it's so good. And it's another one that's so short. Like, there's 2 scenes. I don't want to spoil anything for you, but can you spoil a movie about a giant spider? It's more than one spider. It's a spider invasion, you guys. It's a legit giant spider invasion. They have this gigantic spider, and, like, people will go up to fight it. And it's got this, like, mouth. This flappy mouth hole. And it bends over and like it picks people up, and then you got this guy. The stunt person or the actor is probably doing most of the work, holding on and kicking. And they're like, no, and then they start to disappear into the hole. Like a bunch of blood will come out. It's like, this is the best thing ever. This is the best spider slaughter scene. Like how many other movies can you see where a giant spider picks a person up? It's not CGI, it's not stop motion, it's a practical, huge spider puppet, picks someone up, chews them up, like absorbs them in, and then he's like, blood. It's if you are a certain kind of movie audience, you understand what I'm saying. Guys, that is going to do it for this Review-Palooza. Again, it's not all good, but you understand why we pursue, like why we watch this stuff. It's the love of the movie. It's the love of the art itself. So what are you guys watching? Have you picked up any of this stuff? What do you think about some of the stuff we've talked about in this Review-Palooza? Guys, thanks so much for making it to the very end of this video. I appreciate you so very much. Take care. And until next time, I will catch you later.